Double P podcast. Double P.
What I like to call
Double P.
What I like to call
Double P podcast.
Welcome to
Asako,
a podcast about the Terror. This year we're talking The Terror Season 2. And today we're going to be breaking down and going through spoilers and talking about everything in Season 2, Episode 9. Come and get me. Heck yeah. My name's Bubba. We here are part of Double P Media. You found us on Double P Podcast. Whichever way you listen to this podcast, please subscribe. If you find it on things like Facebook or YouTube or anything, also like it on Twitter. Like us at Walmart, at the counter. If you find us in a nuclear fallout bunker in New Mexico, like us. We're at Double PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/Double PHQ. I am joined by two guys who, let's be honest, haven't stolen any children that I know of. It's Mork and Catfish. You guys just watched Season 2, Episode 9, Come and Get Me. Let's go to you first, Mork. Mork, this is the penultimate episode. What is your ranking out of 10 for our good buddy Chester, Luz, and the gang?
I am going to give this penultimate episode of this roller coaster of a season 7 double R's.
Double R's?
7 regrettable raisings of Chester by Henry and Asako. And I want to be clear that the 7 reflects a automatic 1 point increase for 1 giving the greatest actress in the world, Naoko Mori, a cool hat. And also she had some great scenes. I don't know if we're going to say goodbye to her or not. I wasn't sure how fatal the multiple stab wounds were at the end, but she was great, and the shots of her at the bridge were great. So that the 7 includes an extra point just for her. So I'm giving it 7. What about you, Catfish? King of the time jumps.
Well, I was going to give it, this episode, for a long time I was going to give it double H's.
Double H's?
Yeah, Heroic Henry for all the magic that happened tonight. And because he really brought out Maxwell's silver hammer and continually crushed Chester with it, I upgraded it by my original ranking by 2. So now I'm giving it 9. What we like to know is double S's.
Double S?
Yeah, sister switcheroos.
Oh.
That's when you go, you know what, this guy's not so good, so I'm going to switch him, and I'm going to take the nice guy, and she can have the dickweed.
Yes, basically you're giving it 9 Sense and Sensibilities.
That's exactly right, like that movie. Sisters switch husbands all the time. It's in Jane Austen. Good point, Mork.
Thank you.
Now, what about you, Bubba? So we got a 7. That's an inflated grade of a 7, and then an inflated grade of a 9. Where do you land on this episode, Bubba?
Well, I feel bad because I'm also going to have to give it some double S's.
Double S's?
Yeah. Spanish software. Obviously, Yuko has taken some Rosetta Stone software to learn her catchphrase in Spanish. She needed to go a bit further into the software to learn some Spanish prayers to fool the evil Chester and Luz and keeping her baby from her. But I am so torn. I guess if Mork is a 7 and a Catfish is a 9, I will go right in between at 7.5 double S's out of 10.
That is not right in between. However, it is in between.
7.5.
There's that.
Because last week...
Bubba, you are no longer in charge of handling the FICA deductions from our paychecks here.
You're being fired as the Double P Media accountant.
Okay, guys, last week I love the stuff between Amy and Major Forgotten Character. Major Bowen. I love that. And this week I could kind of tell from the next on last week that maybe Amy would get away and like everything would be fine. But it was dropped so harshly.
It was just like, well, Bowen's not around, but we'll let all you guys go. We're not worried about
No, they did. There were
any foul behavior.
You guys, I've been watching the show in this new Dolby Atmos, and it's just so choice. And you can actually hear if you basically sat on the left side of your couch in the surround sound, you could actually hear the PA at the camp literally paging Major Bowen. So it was they were searching.
No, in the real world, the real world where Bowen goes missing and then eventually he gets found brutally murdered. Does anyone remember that Amy walked out of the camp with an injured wing?
Nah. No. They were having the party because Walt's back. Everybody had some bumps and bruises.
I was a little disappointed that we weren't gonna get a little bit of. I was hoping for it would be Weekend at Major Bowen's. Seeing them, just see how far they could go before being captured.
Well, if Yuko's coming, you're either going to hear that sinister wind or hear a little bell. If the spirit of Major Forgotten Character is coming, you're going to hear.
It's true.
As he got double P'd.
Double P.
Puddle pushed last episode. And,
oh, boy.
He was just left in the puddle. This would be great if... Where'd Major Bowen go? Well, let's not look down in the storeroom.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our ranking. We obviously want to jump in and talk more about it, but I think we do have to go to some great feedback. And, guys, I apologize. I haven't gathered it like I usually do by the time we start recording, but I do have two things we can jump in real quick. And so, Catfish, why don't you read this first bit of feedback we got on Twitter at our @PHQ handle from a great actress on The Terror.
Naoko. We got it from Naoko, also known, a.k.a. known as the long-suffering Asako, Chester's mom.
Perhaps deservedly.
Well, and then also we found out tonight, after I found out that she was devious like that, immediately became at least 17% more attractive to me. Love the crazy ladies. Love the schemers.
Okay.
She said gave us 3 hand claps. You guys really are great. And she did hashtag ice appropriate.
Aww.
And then she said brilliant as always with a heart. We super appreciate that. She got to shine tonight. That was nice. We didn't get a lot of her last episode.
It sounds like it is awesome, and we are honored, but it sounds like she has the same taste in podcasts as she does in children. So.
Oh my goodness.
That's right. Finally tonight, the character deserved to have to listen to this podcast.
You guys are so terrible. Just terrible. We also got this great bit of feedback from Facebook. And Mork, do you want to read this from our wonderful Double L loyal listener, Peter Connolly in Australia?
Absolutely. Hi, Bubba, Catfish, and Mork. It's funny. I've been so critical of this season of The Terror, but I can't wait for each new episode. Do you think that the first season was just so damn good that it set the bar too high for the season to follow? I do agree with Catfish, though, about Chester. I've never seen a more unlikable character as the main character as Chester is. I feel sorry for the actor playing him.
So, guys, we have been critical. I'll ask this, and I'll go to you first, Catfish. We have been critical, but are you a bit like Peter? Do you get excited when a new episode comes up in the feed?
I will say we came around to this. I've mentioned it before, but I'll just say it one last time. Hopefully this is the last time you have to hear it, is that I really wish that this season had made the camp a more important part of it. The way in the first season their location was essential. Mm-hmm. This whole thing could have happened outside of the camp. And also that this was driven by the characters, rather than sort of they could have taken this opportunity for this evil to have been driven by what was done to them. Instead, they had 2 evils visited upon them.
Chester.
So, yeah.
Wait, Chester and Yuko. Now, as a member of Team Chester, I think he did great.
Wait, hold on. As the only member of Team Chester, make sure you're clear about that.
Hold on. It can't be a team. There's no I in team. Or in Chester. How about you, Mork? We have been tougher on this season. It is following up an all-time classic season, if you ask me about The Terror Season 1. But now that we're in the home stretch, now that we're at the penultimate episode, how do you feel, and maybe we should be doing this next week, but how do you feel about the season as a whole?
I can't imagine what's going to go down in the mid-1940s in a secret military base in New Mexico next week. So who knows where this is going, guys. But I will say that, yeah, I've had some similar issues with the show as Catfish, but I do look forward to it because, one of the criticisms that the show is trying to be so many things, which is a little frustrating from just a viewer, just me as a greedy audience member wanting to be satisfied. But when they've taken some crazy left turns, and a lot of them have been really enjoyable. And at Catfish, you were saying how Yuko's not really a character. I actually think after we got to hang out with her in Purgatory for a little bit, that she became much more of a character. And I wish that had to come a lot sooner. So there is so much great stuff. And even, I was mentioning earlier where I do think the acting is very good. And, across the board, definitely including our boy Chester. And
I will say that for him. It is not his acting. It is the way he's being written and directed to be that way. It is clearly, maybe simply just so that I could get to this episode tonight and rank it up 2 whole ratings for the constant crushing, the double C that Henry delivers to Chester. It should have been a triple C, Chester's constant crushing.
Oh, man. Well, let's get to it, guys. Let's go to January 29th, 1945. 3 years in this camp. Oh.
Okay, 3 years in the camp, but do we remember what the approximate date was at the end of the last episode? So Bowen, was it a New Year's Eve party? So has Bowen been missing for 30 days?
No. It was a party because Walt and some of the other Japanese American people who in the camp who volunteered to fight were coming back conquering heroes and recruiting other people. So it was a party for them. I would say if you had to guess when the last episode happened, it had to have been in like 6 or 8 months before because Luz really wasn't very pregnant.
Sure, but after they get released, there's a 6 month time jump. So Luz would now then be 15 months pregnant, which...
Listen, when you're having a Tiazo Jr.
Look, Bubba's no longer in charge of payroll nor sex ed lessons. At Double P Media.
Guys, let me get to what I thought was an ice-cold paragraph right at the top from Major Forgotten Characters Replacement. He's like, okay, guys, the Supreme Court did it. And in lieu of Major Bowen, we repatriate you into American society. But don't forget.
Yeah, remember.
Yeah. You leave this camp bearing a heavy responsibility to the nation that has given you shelter through this trying times, and an obligation to the laws under which you especially must abide. We are a country still at war, and we fully expect you to demonstrate your allegiance.
Also,
cold.
We may have bulldozed over your entire neighborhood.
Ice cold. What a terrible send-off. Amy, I think you got another guy to puddle push here. This was rough.
Yeah.
Now, this is where Henry gets his first ice-cold moment in, as far as I'm concerned.
Let's hear it.
Because they're talking about Chester, and he says, no word for months. We may never know what's become of him. And then he just starts laughing and laughing.
He did not.
Are you sure he didn't laugh?
Listen, I don't know what you guys have on that Dolby Automouse sound.
He said those words, though, right?
He did say those words.
I could have sworn that he was like...
No, if you have the...
God, it's so good.
If you have the Atmos on, you can hear that, actually. Yeah, it's. Okay. I concur.
So maybe I'm wrong, but that's just the way that's the way I interpreted it.
So we're saying officially goodbye to this camp, but in some ways, as we're going to see in a bit, these poor Japanese Americans' lives somehow go from terrible to worse than terrible.
Well, actually, I don't know about that, Bubba.
Now, Henry has a sandwich that he has the greatest sandwich ever.
Right, he did, and then he did say the house was, in fact, going to need some work.
It turns to ashes in his mouth, though, because his wife's got to ruin it for him by bringing up Chester.
Listen,
ruined.
Is that why he handed the second half of the sandwich to her? I lost my appetite. You finish it.
I was kind of hoping, and this is a semi-serious request to the writers and the producers of the Terror Infamy. When I see Henry and Asako, and she's got that cool hat, and he's eating his sandwich, and he's got like the baseball, or not the baseball, the paper delivery guy hat, I thought they would make great private detectives.
Oh, man.
I think right now we can officially announce
Spin-off.
Nakayama Private Detective Agency is in production. Is that correct?
How about this? True Detective Season 4.
Why did we keep Chester?
Hey now. You guys are so tough on Chester, but these poor people, they are finally free of the camp. They're so free of the camp that sandwiches taste great. And they're heading back to Terminal Island, San Pedro, and they get there, and didn't you feel like you knew what was coming? It was almost like things were going too well. There's no way they could keep going well.
Well, I was a little surprised.
Going too well.
Oh.
When were things going well?
Well, they were out of the camp. Number one, good thing. They got a great sandwich. Number two, great thing.
I can't remember.
Bubba, no more payroll. No more biology class, and definitely not planning the Christmas party.
Listen, I'm going to work in HR. Look at how great things are.
I can't remember whether I talked about it on the podcast with my research or not, but I did see that they had read that not only were their homes given away, I didn't expect bulldoze, but I thought not only were people who were in turn their homes given away, but they were forced to sell their cars, and if they wouldn't sell them for cheap, they were just seized for the war effort. So they came back and had nothing to be thankful for, just as in here.
I was going to say that I'm not that familiar with all the history, but it just had the feeling that something terrible was going to happen. And what I believe ends up happening is terrible, that flop house or that Skid Row apartment building where everybody is crammed into is so tough to see. This is after Henry, a very proud fisherman. I mean, how many times has he told us, I'm a simple fisherman. I love this country. Suddenly he's working as a gardener and seems just absolutely miserable, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to do it, and he has to take... the one thing you could say about fishing, although he could get screwed at the end, was still that he was his own boss,
Yeah, he was, but now, once again, he's under the man.
No, definitely. I mean, he has it rough, but as we'll see, he's going to have it rougher throughout this episode. But I'm a little concerned. And do you guys think that we're going to see Amy or Walt again? Was that it?
How about George Takei?
No, we're going to see him again. Sorry.
Spoiler alert, they are in the next week on The Terror, in the final episode preview. But the fact that we lost this big story that was such a huge part of last week, and they had spent a couple weeks building towards, it did feel very odd. But as this show kind of wants to do these time jumps, it wants to move. Now, before it can move, though, it brought us back to the bridge.
Oh, boy.
Chester's mom is there, Asako, and she's asking her sister for forgiveness. Like, why did you come? Why did you come? She's doing some ritual where she throws these petals into the water. Did you discover what I did? Is one of the things she says. And this was a very tense scene for me. Sorry, Mork, go.
Oh, well, did Henry steal that flower from work? Number one. And
it wasn't buried in the right place. He had to move it.
Okay. And number two, I don't know why she's doing a cliffhanger. She doesn't know that. I mean, it's sort of a weird. It's a cliffhanger that she's leaving a ghost on. She could just say, "Hey, sorry, I did this. I feel awful," but to not really apologize for this, and obviously, they want to save it up for later, and it's okay. I get that, but it just felt very odd that she's having this very open thing, and then of course the thing I really feel bad about. It struck me as a little funny, but this is a creepy place. Do you guys think that this is it's so beautiful, it's almost too beautiful. Do you think this is a real place, or is this some kind of a CG bridge situation?
Oh, it was definitely CG. The sky behind her was definitely enhanced and, kind of made
the
more
sky,
ominous.
for sure.
And then probably, I would assume, because of that, I would also assume the water below.
But it's beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. And I would also say that they had been giving little hints, and in tonight's previously on, they gave that little hint where this person yelled at her and said, "If you weren't so selfish." And so this is apparently known what she did. She says later in the episode, I did it and I do it again.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody, somehow this is a known thing, that Yuko wasn't going to be stuck with grumpy old Furuya. It was supposed to be her. And I guess she has a bit of remorse, but it doesn't seem like it. And I guess if based on what we know of Furuya, she made the right call for her.
She did, and her sister got everything, including pregnant. So, you know what? It was her time to shine. It was her time to shine.
If Furuya had learned about where babies come from Bubba, then maybe there wouldn't have been any reason for Yuko to lie at all in the first place, and she could have just raised the baby as Furuya's son. So
absolutely true.
Just a thought. Now this is
going to be edited so much.
So we're downtown, and I actually have this is my ice cold moment.
Oh, let's hear it.
My ice cold line of the night. So we see where Henry's staying. It's not in a great place. It's in a tenement house. It is rough, and he's walking to grab the phone, and we hear the ice cold line of the night. It's Chester saying, "I'm alive. I'm okay."
That was an ice cold to Catfish and everybody who's not part of Team Chester. Take that, Catfish. Ice cold, Chester. What I loved is that if you have the Dolby Atmos sound turned on, you hear that he called collect. Take that, Henry.
Double C, triple C, collect Chester calls. Chester calls collect. Yeah, I did. I liked how they shot this, and I liked them showing up. But here we are now. Well,
before we go any further, since we're on this phone call, I think we got to hand it over to Team Henry, Captain Catfish, because Henry goes on an ice cold assault, verbal assault that is one for the ages. This of 2 seasons of looking at ice colds. This might just be a mic drop. So, Catfish, do you want to give us these?
Here's the thing. Now, listen. This one I thought was the best ice cold diss of all time over both seasons. And then there was a worse one that Henry gave later.
Right.
But when he gets there, he gets off the bus and he turns to Luz, who is the only young person he likes. And he says, "I'm sorry you married a fool. My only comfort is that he does not share my blood."
Oh, ice cold. Oh,
boom.
Hello, father-in-law. How you doing? Well, Catfish, I thought you were going to go to his phone call, ice cold, where Chester's like, "Listen, I want you to come," and Henry says, "I'm sure my wife will insist we go." Oh. Ice cold.
Listen, yeah, come on now. That is not as good as the other one, and definitely not as good as the last one. Oh, man.
Well, hold on.
We get there. I just want to be there.
Henry has been ice fishing, and today he's pulling his catch up to drop ice colds on his son. Oh, so brutal.
Delicious and well earned.
So they go to New Mexico. This is, the core cast is coming together, and we see that what they've done to the house is crazy. They've boarded it up. They don't want anybody coming, anybody who could be Yuko'd, who could be possessed.
I thought I was watching some of the extended scenes, some of the deleted scenes, and there's a whole sequence with a very pushy brush salesman, a door-to-door brush salesman. And first he knocks
I thought he was selling encyclopedias.
No.
Hold on, this is New Mexico. I thought he was selling blue meth.
It could be. But we did get a quick glimpse into Purgatory. And
good point.
So I don't want to skip too far ahead, but we did get a quick glimpse. And I don't know about you guys, but if non-zombie Yuko is bringing me breakfast in bed, I am staying. I'm going to call that a win.
Let me say Let me say, Mork Jiro, you don't have a choice. Yuko controls this entrance and exit.
I'm going to call eternity a win.
I loved that when we saw Jiro in the bed, and that's how we got brought back to this limbo space. It started with a bug in there to let Jiro know if he could figure it out, but let us as an audience know there's still something rotten in Denmark. And
no, it just means that garden is very alive.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's all that means.
It ain't alive.
Yes, and he'll be silenced. Yuko gives him the Daryl Morey treatment, and and we go back to the house. It was pretty cool, that shot of Father Redshirt arriving, but that shot of just, you see his what do we call that? His smock, and then the house in the background. It was cool.
You mean his priestly cloak or his pope hat? No, I don't.
Yeah. Okay.
His robes. He's dressed like a priest.
His kimono.
Listen to me. He's there, and I loved
his Catholic kimono.
I loved that he and the Team Chester, came up with a way to confirm that it's not Yuko. They're going to have this kind of catchphrase where they say something in Spanish, and if he responds, obviously he's not Yuko. I love that as a Yuko detection device. I love it. It admittedly didn't work too long, but I did love it. And at that moment, to give the show its credit, I was wondering, okay, how is Yuko going to get in here? How is Yuko going to bust through that door, which they've said the prayers, and I'm sure they have charms up and stuff. And I love that as a moment of okay, how are we going to do this?
I was afraid that Yuko might have been hiding because she's so tiny. She could have been clinging to one of the priest's legs under the garb.
Under the priestly smock.
Under the Catholic kimono, and no one would have been none the wiser.
Okay, so Catfish, do you want to lead us through this moment between Chester and his father, Henry?
Well, I will say this. Henry says to him, first of all, I forgot to note that when Chester called Henry, he called him Pop. So clearly he knew he wanted something. And so then he says, this is a funny moment where I sort of feel for Chester, only because Henry says, why didn't you ever ask me for advice? And then Chester says, well, what is your advice? And then Henry says this, which leads Chester to realize maybe this is why I never asked for advice.
Let's hear it.
Henry says, I would have told you to leave that poor girl alone. I would have told you if you love Luz, you wouldn't bring any more misery into her life. I would have told you to be a man, but it's too late for that now. Oh, ice cold. It's too late for you to be a man. Oh, look, the priest almost gave Chester last rites for frostbite after that.
My dad came home just the other day. He said, son, I should have told you to be a man, and the cat's in the cradle.
It was, I stood up and cheered. Well, I was so happy.
Now listen.
And finally, but then I was then I put myself in Chester's shoes and thought, yeah, that's great. I'm so glad I never asked you for advice before.
Henry also confronts Chester, and he's like, listen, we burned her corpse, and she persists. What is your point, buddy? You can't outrun it. Chester's plan, at least the initial plan he told his dad about, it didn't make any sense. We'll just live here for a bit, then we'll move here for a bit. That's not going to work when you're battling a demon, dude.
Except for the fact that it apparently took her 2 years to get there, hoboing around across the country.
Those DVD deleted scenes are going to be great. Yuko at the Grand Canyon.
Yuko at Hoover Dam.
All right, guys, so we're set up for the birthing scene. It's time to birth some babies. Not in a hospital where it'd be nice, but here in the creepy house without any lights, which is totally boarded up. We have some support staff here checking the doors.
I'm pretty sure I can think of at least one place that's worse for someone to give birth in than a house without any lights on. But go ahead.
And so Yuko learned Spanish. Let's give her some credit. Not only is she determined, she wanted both her sons, or wanted 2 babies to replace the baby she lost. She got Jiro. Tip of my cap to Yuko. And then she wants another baby, so she's going to take that Spanish software I talked about earlier, get the Rosetta Stone, SOCKS, and she is going to get in that house, and she's going to totally priest nap that baby.
I guess at that point she'd be the Abuela, right?
Si se puente. That's what she's saying.
The Abuela. I think that's it. I think that's the right answer.
And so, guys, and I'll start with you, Catfish, but I'll give you a chance too, Mork. This is the horror moment. This is the creepy moment. This is the scary moment. How effective was the initial part here in the house? What do you think, Catfish?
I'll answer it this way. Let me ask the question. Did any of us think that it wasn't going to be the priest?
Maybe because he answered in Spanish for about 1 second, but then I was like, oh, no, the priest is the only person entering. It has to be the priest.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, what about you, Mork? Did you know it was going to be the priest?
Well, I was sort of hoping, I mean, last week with the Ouija board, seance ceremony, I thought, I didn't trust Grandma, and I didn't actually trust Chester because he'd been sort of, touched by the other side or something. So I was, when it started happening, you could see it coming a mile away, but I was hoping it would be a different way to go. But, there were some real echoes of, it was sort of, this whole sequence was a bit of a mashup of The Exorcist and The Walking Dead and Rosemary's Baby. And then somehow they get, this is all based on my biology classes that I took from Bubba, but apparently getting a pregnant woman into a moving car
out of bed
Luz was in the car before anybody else, apparently. So I didn't love how they did that exactly. And just remind me, because it's been we're 9 episodes in, but that's Henry's car, right?
Or is it Chester's car? Possession is 9/10 the law.
No,
because Henry gave it to that evil racist fish dude at the fish house, and Chester took it from him.
It's true. I just thought there was a room there for a nice moment of.
Well, I mean, who's been paying the insurance on it? That's the real. That's
Major Bowen. Major Bowen. Amy has been diverting funds.
Oh no!
From the camp.
Oh, I can't believe you're going to blame Amy for this.
Sweet Amy. All right, so let's get in the car. But you know what? Hold on. Before we get in the car, when exactly did Yuko find her way to take over the infant, the baby? Was it there when the priest was putting his hand on the belly? Or it doesn't feel like that could be it because Yuko was still in the priest, like fighting people. But perhaps that's the only way in. And perhaps that's the only reason why Chester's brilliant plan, hashtag Team Chester, is to, let's go to a nuclear testing facility.
Yeah, that a friend of mine told me about.
This was crazy. What did you guys think? This really, there's some head scratchers occasionally on this show. This was tonight's head scratcher for me. I'm like, you're coming here? This is like that Geico commercial where the kids in the horror film are like, oh, why don't we go into the scary house? Let's go into the basement. No, let's go up into the attic. Why don't we get into the running car? Nah, let's hide behind the chainsaws.
If you're going to go anywhere, if your plan is to go somewhere, I think that's the best place to go, where you think you're going to be alone and you'll be able to protect yourself from outside people breaking in. The real question is whether, and you brought this up earlier, whether that plan's worth a crap anyway.
Well, yeah, that's the question. They go into this bunker, and now we set up our second tense, scary scene. We have this little bell set up. If you've listened to us here at Double P Media on other podcasts we've done, like Lost Hope, where there's the little bell when the evil fairy shows up in the Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell television show. Or if you've listened to us on our Game of Thrones coverage, where the bells always played an important part of the show, especially the shame bell. But there was the bell at the end, spoiler alert, where Dany didn't obey the bells and just came to kill. And so here we have another bell that sets up what I admit might have ended up as a fake out, but I thought it was very good, intense, and scary. That is, okay, we are giving birth to this baby, but this bell is ringing, the lights are flashing. Oh snap, what's going to happen? Mork, what did you think? What did you think of this tense, scary moment?
Tone of it and the moodiness and the way that it was shot was great, but I just didn't believe that they'd be able to get in there so easily and hang out there, and that no one would be around. And of course, as we find out in a few minutes, they're not alone. There's there's random people celebrating something, which we'll see more of. I have a feeling next week. So yeah, I mean, if it was just a factory, I mean, why couldn't it have been an abandoned factory or something like that to do everything? But
well, they came to New Mexico. The show is setting this in New Mexico for a reason. Who's to say episode 10 doesn't end with a bang? What did you think, Catfish? Sorry, I'm going to cut you off here. Mork, what did you think? Because, Catfish, you're our resident horror expert. What did you think of these scenes?
I thought it was really nice that was a cool setup. And it would have been, I was expecting sort of the double fake out where it's not that, and then she shows up. I mean, I think where she ended up showing up was actually a lot creepier, but the scene was brought down by more conversation between Chester and Henry, which is, no matter what side you're on, these two just aren't going to work things out. I don't need any more of their shenanigans. Chester's got some sort of crazy plan that sounds like it would make me happy, unless I was interpreting it incorrectly. It sounds like Chester was willing to kill himself and go downtown with Yuko. In that case, I'll count me all in.
So Catfish is now on Team Chester. Let me say I'm on Team Henry.
Team Chester in hell.
I'm on Team Henry. I'm on Team Henry because he saves Chester from getting killed or killing himself. Good work, Henry.
Henry.
No, it was very dark outside.
He knocked out that evil British bomb builder.
He thought it was Chester.
He thought it was dark.
Oh, guys. So let's go back inside. We know that Yuko has to show up again. We've seen the flashing lights. We've had the fake out with the mouse on the bell. But when Luz mentions, why isn't my baby making any noise? Why isn't my baby making any noise? To me, that was very powerful moment. Yeah. Scary. That was good. A great portrayal by the baby.
The very strange statement, why is my baby looking at me like he knows something? Or knows a secret.
He knows a secret.
He said something that was very strange. Why is my baby looking at me like I forgot to turn the stove off before I left home?
I thought it was great. I thought, as I mentioned a second ago, this is a great performance by a baby. This is one creepy, oh no. I loved it. I thought it was great. Oh. And then Yuko jumps from the baby into Grandma, and it is baby stealing time. Yo.
That's when we've got the Abuela.
Mork, what did you think of Yuko baby or Yuko grandma form?
The baby thing was great. And the Abuela, I mean, honestly, yeah. I would have liked to have seen the Abuela kick some ass a little earlier in the house. Just because, I don't know, I thought that would look cooler beating up the brother or the brother or the uncle or somebody. But, all this was, it was really rich and it was creepy, but it did feel like, okay, so a couple weeks ago we got George Takei to do some face painting, and then we burned this spirit corpse alive or dead alive, and now I've got this 6-shooter, and somehow that's gonna even
Well, I think the plan is, and again, to my delight, I think his plan is to kill himself and to have her take him, right? Because she can't take him while he's alive.
Right. So he needs another one of those rituals that we saw the other week. He needs another one of those rituals where somebody goes to visit him from that picture and then hands him over to Yuko. That is his plan to self-sacrifice, and that's why Chester is such a hero. He's putting himself above everybody else here finally in the 9th episode. #hero. But, of course... I
mean, I would agree that, if he had gone through with it, I would consider him not just a hero, but finally not being so selfish and considering my feelings about him. But he didn't go through with it.
Well,
because he's a #wimp.
Let's get to the final twist, the big twist, this is why all these terrible things are happening. And that is Asako goes to confront Luz's grandma / her sister Yuko and pretty much lays out the whole backstory. That this was my ice cold diss of the episode, and it was Asako to her sister, where she says, "I have lived my life with your son and with the man who should have been your husband." Oh, ice cold.
Oh, and then she says, "And if I had a chance, I'd do it all again, sister."
Yeah. Oh, ice. #ice cold. I loved it.
I'm guessing that's why she didn't fully apologize on the bridge.
Perhaps. But she gets points for being honest.
Yeah, I love it.
We cut away before there's some violence, which obviously happens to Grandma and to Chester's mom. But by the time Chester and Henry get back in there, you're right. Chester's mom, Henry's wife, could be dead. The grandma looks like she'll pull through. But now the worst thing at all. Somebody who has had one of the worst seasons of bad luck ever. Luz. Luz has been taken. She has been possessed by Yuko, and she's taking her son and bringing it to Yuko in Purgatory. Oh my God, what a terrible cliffhanger. What great acting by, I think her name is Christina Rodolo, who plays Luz. Great acting, but oh snap. It's just gone from bad to worse for her. She's already given birth to 2 stillborn children, and now this. It's just the worst. But of course, the worst means it's a great cliffhanger for next week.
True that. If everything you're saying, Bubba, is true, then I agree 100%. But what if you're Luz and you realize, wait a minute, the way for me to escape and get away from Chester and his wacky family is to pretend that I'm Yuko? What if this is just a ruse and she's trying to trick everybody?
Oh, my congratulations. My congratulations to her. Smart move.
Thank you.
Guys, do you want to have predictions? What can happen? What will happen next week in episode 10?
Whew. Well, I think I have been pitching forever, ever since I realized that they meant for Chester to be a dick the whole time, especially tonight. I mean, his father, one thing we didn't talk about, Henry called him out. He's like, you're just so selfish. You call us when you need us, but other than that, you could give a rat's ass about us. Ever since I realized the writers sincerely meant Chester to be a jerk, the only thing that can redeem him is the plan that he has tonight, to sacrifice himself so that the rest of us can live happy lives.
Why are you including yourself in that?
Oh, I'm sorry. So the rest of the family can live happy lives.
Okay. Do we have a title?
Well, hold on.
There is a title. I did see a title on IMDb.
I believe it's something like, and I'm going to paraphrase what I believe the title is. The title is something like Into the Afterlife.
Yeah, something like that. So that's it. Chester's going to go and hopefully, cross fingers, not come back.
I think I'd like to see Chester save Luz and the baby and Henry and Asako, that she's alive and well. But the price for doing that is somehow he his tongue is severed, and he's castrated, so he can't get loose pregnant again.
Well, I don't know why he had to have the tongue.
See, all I wanted was to be dead. Mork wants him mutilated, for God's sake.
No, I don't want him mutilated. I'm just saying,
you want him mutilated. Excuse me. You want him to lose his tongue and his... That is mutilation, my friend. Well, all I'm asking for is a sweet release of death for him.
There could be, and
for the rest of us.
Look, if there's an atomic bomb and the only thing he loses are his tongue and his, then he got off pretty good. So in fact, I'm actually wishing him good health.
Guys, I'll go ahead and read the description of next week's episode 10, Into the Afterlife. As all seems lost, Henry and Asako must look to the past to provide answers to their current turmoil. Chester and Luz grapple with their identities in hopes of saving those who are dearest to them. Amy and Yamato-san struggle to once again assimilate into American life. So that's what we're talking about. Obviously, Amy's going to come back in. How does Amy go about her day when she knows she's a stone-cold killer?
I mean, it depends. Can we get Amy out there to New Mexico?
Yeah, all she needs is a puddle, and she can get the job done.
And then after she's done with Chester, she can do Yuko.
Wait a minute, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. What? Hold on.
Listeners, I apologize. If you want to join me on the correct non-hater train of Team Chester, reach out to us on our social media platforms. On Twitter and Instagram, it's @PHQ. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/PHQ. Please subscribe. We're going to keep covering other shows. You can find about all our stuff if you subscribe to our Twitter or our Instagram or like the Facebook page. Oh, and if you could, we keep asking so much of you Double L loyal listeners. But hey, also reviews help. If you go to the Apple Podcast app or you go to the Stitcher app, wherever you download and listen to this podcast, YouTube, please give us a review. It always helps other people find out and join on the train. Join on the pro-Chester train. That's what we want here at Double PHQ. All right, guys, let's wrap up this episode by talking about our ice-cold diss of the week. We've all kind of named ours, but now we have to come together. Just like our heroes, we have to come together and name the ice-cold of this episode. Let's go to you first, Mork. What do you think? What's your ice-cold?
I think, actually, reflecting about how tough I've been on Chester, I'm gonna say that my ice cold diss of the week was uttered by the people in charge of the camp in regards to making sure that Major Bowen was recovered safe and sound when they announced this. Nothing. They said nothing. They didn't care. He was completely disposable to them, and I thought that was ice cold.
That is ice cold. They were like, anybody know where Major Bowen is? No? Okay, moving on.
Major who?
Ice cold. All right, Catfish, do you want to fight for your Henry ice cold disses? What is your final pick? We got to come to a consensus.
It's going to be, regarding the advice, I would have told you to be a man, but it's too late for that now. Oh, delicious.
All right, hold on. Bring. Catfish, answer the phone. Bring.
Hello?
This is a collect call from your son, Chester. Hashtag ice cold.
How much is the charge exactly?
Who dis?
Wait. What? Listeners, we may not be able to come up with a complete consensus ice cold on this, but there were so many great ones. Please, hey, reach out to us, connect with us on our social media platforms, and tell us your ice cold of this episode. For everybody here, my name's Bubba, and you can find me on Twitter at FittinTrim. That's FITTENTRIM at FittinTrim on Twitter.
And I'm Catfish. You can hit me up at CJGman67 on Twitter.
Mork is at Extraordinary. That is extraordinary with a W in front of the final R, unlike how Bubba spells it on our feed sometimes.
Oh, no. And you will hear us next time when Chester, Luz, and all the rest get
ice cold.
What if you could defeat a Bakemono through ice cold disses? They would have taken care of this problem a long time ago. You know what I mean?
What if Amy would have gone up north last year and drowned Toonbach or Iggy?
You know, Chester could have solved this whole problem by being as much of a dick to Yuko as he was to Henry. She would have been like, I don't want this spoiled brat.
Thank God I don't have any kids anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, you'll hear us next week, time listeners. See you.